And we're back. I'm Sister Kamau on this Monday edition of Intervisions. I want to wish all of our listeners, our supporters, a very happy and prosperous and healthy New Year, and would like to thank our supporters that supported us in 2016, that supported the station, those who supported us with their time, talent, and or treasure. A big thank you to you, and we look forward to working with you again in 2017. And this hour, we have a couple of guests. Our first guest up is Dr. Umar Johnson, and he is a doctor of clinical psychology and certified school psychologist who's considered an expert on the education and mental health of African and African American children. Dr. Umar, as he is known to his friends, is a paternal kinsman to both the great abolitionist Frederick Douglass and the late Bishop Alexander Wayman, the seventh bishop of the AME Church, both from Maryland's Eastern Shore. Dr. Umar is founder and lead tour guide for the Unapologetically African Black College and Consciousness Tour for 11 through 17-year-old boys and girls, which exposes them to the great historical Black college tradition within the context of visiting and learning about significant places and personalities that help shape the global African struggle for freedom and independence. This tour is held annually during the first 2 weeks of July. Dr. Umar has been featured on News One Now with Roland Martin, The Tom Joyner Show, The Bev Smith Show, The Breakfast Club, and has appeared as a special guest life coach on Real Housewives of Atlanta. As a child therapist, he works with depressed and behaviorally challenged males. Dr. Umar is author of the book Psycho-Academic Holocaust, The Special Education and ADH Wars Against Black Boys, the first book ever written by an African-American male school psychologist to Black parents with specific strategies on how to fight back against special education and ADHD misdiagnosis. Dr. Umar also holds degrees in education and political science. He's currently working on building his new school, the Frederick Douglass and Marcus Garvey RBG International Leadership Academy for Boys, America's first residential academy for Black boys, founded upon the principles of Pan-Africanism and international economics. Dr. Umar, welcome back to KPFK.
Yes, welcome.
Thank you, Queen. It's an honor to be with you.
And wishing you a happy new year.
And sending regards from Dr. Mary Kara. He's been out temporarily recovering from surgery, but he sends his regards.
All right.
So I'm Reverend Amadi, and so we just wanted to start off by having you tell us about your work in the field of psychology and a little bit about your journey that got you to where you are now.
Certainly. First, I wanted to let the listening audience know that I'll be in Los Angeles on Saturday. This Saturday, January the 7th at the Ward AME Church. Looking forward to that because it'll be my first time speaking in Los Angeles in 4 years, since 2014. So it's been quite a while and a lot has happened. Professionally, as the Queen said, I'm a doctor of clinical psychology and school psychologist. I'm an expert in the area of learning disability differential diagnosis. And what that means is my job is to find out whether or not the diagnosis is accurate. As a school psychologist, we evaluate, but a lot of the diagnoses that my colleagues make are very inaccurate and are often pressured into making those diagnoses by teachers and principals. It's important that parents understand that the school psychologist does not operate in a stress-free environment. The school psychologist has relationships that they want to maintain and relationships that are necessary in order for them to maintain their employment, and they often succumb to the will of teachers, parents, and principals as opposed to defending the best interests of children. And when it comes to ADHD, I, probably more than any other black psychologist alive, has really helped to educate black parents about what exactly this ADHD monster is and what this ADHD monster is not. And we really need parents to know that neither ADHD nor the learning disability can be scientifically verified in any child. The diagnoses, which are the two most popular for black children, reading disabilities and ADHD, are nothing more than professional opinions.
Well, Dr. Umar, I want to go back to talking about ADHD, and you said that you focus on what it is and what it isn't. So give us a snippet of what it is and what it isn't. And then the other thing I want to talk about is how our black children can fall behind in the school system, because now a lot of the schools across the country are expecting children to come into school reading. And and what impact that has on our black children.
Well, firstly, ADD, attention deficit disorder, was invented in 1980 by the American Psychiatric Association with heavy financing from the Wall Street drug industry. And it's no coincidence that ADD was invented the same year that the CIA locked tons of crack cocaine off in the black community. The pharmacological war against black boys began the exact same year as the pharmacological war against black men was intensified. No coincidence. Now, ADD becomes ADHD in 1987. And the reason it becomes ADHD in 1987, the reason they added the unholy H, is due to the fact that there's no medication that can make a child pay attention. So if a child is diagnosed with ADD, there's no medication to deal with ADD. The medications only arrest brain activity in the interest of calming down human activity. So, as a result of that, they had to add the H to justify writing prescriptions for all black boys. So that's how this monster was created.
So what do those letters stand for? ADHD?
Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder.
Okay.
Which I have renamed Ain't No Daddy at Home disorder.
Wow. That's powerful. Well, I sure salute you for the work that you're doing on behalf of children, really, just, in general, and specifically black youth.
But can you answer the second part of my question too, please?
Yes, indeed. One thing that we need to understand, the criteria for ADHD clearly defines a normal child. Can't sit still, blurts out answers, doesn't play quietly, cannot sustain mental attention. I mean, when you look at the criteria for ADHD, anybody you know, including you and I, could easily be misdiagnosed with it because it largely defines normal behavior. Now, as far as schools expecting children to come to school already reading, I'm not too familiar with that because as a school principal, we don't normally expect the kids to know how to read. But what we do expect them to know how to do when they come to kindergarten or first grade is we expect them to have already a mastery of their alphabet, a mastery of their numbers, a mastery of their colors, their sizes, their shapes. We expect them to already know how to write their name, spell their name, recite their parents' address, write their home address, know their birth date, and be able to print it. So those basic building blocks we do expect them to already know. But needless to say, in the black community, where we're more interested in entertainment than we are about educating our children, we're finding more and more black children come to school for the first day of kindergarten or first grade and not know their letters and numbers. And that's absolutely unacceptable, especially when they can recite every word from the latest rap song. So clearly parents are not doing their job. But I will not make black parents a scapegoat for the school system. The reason black children are failing is because 93% of the people in front of them are white racist women who are absolutely uninterested in the academic success of black males.
And that does have a psychological psychological impact on the child going into school who may be behind already, not knowing those things, their letters and how to write their name and things like that. Have you had an experience with that?
Well, it's easy to catch a child up. In fact, to be honest with you, one of the biggest problems I have about academic delay and deficiency is how it gets exaggerated, not in terms of its prevalence, because we do have a lot of African children who are academically deficient. So there is a lot of that. But the exaggeration centers on how school districts make it appear that it's impossible to bring a child up to grade level. That's nonsense. You can close a child's skill level. You can close the gap by one academic year in as little as 2 weeks. You can literally close the gap. So if a child is 3 grades behind, if they're getting what they need in one marking period, you can almost put that kid on grade level. So they make these exaggerations about how difficult it is to catch kids up because they're not interested in catching them up. And that's why special education has become a trash can where they throw black boys who teachers don't want to give the extra remedial support to get them up to grade level. We got to understand that the teacher we have today is not the teacher we had when you and I went to school. Mm-hmm. When you and I went to school, the teachers were committed to the children. They stayed after school. They visited to home. I remember teachers coming to my house. I remember them sitting on my mother's couch. I remember them holding us after school until we got our homework done. They didn't send a note home. We did it in front of them. It was a different culture. It was a family-based culture. But now education has evolved into a corporate culture where teachers really are not required or expected to have an emotional investment in their children.
Well, Dr. Umar, I really salute the work of black psychologists like yourself who've done so much to bring clarity to the African thought process. And I see you as in the tradition of Francis Cress Welsing, Dr. Amos Wilson, Dr. Wade Nobles, and others. So what are some things that we need to understand about black psychology, and specifically as it relates to black youth?
Good question. I actually presented at this past summer's Association of Black Psychologists Conference in Washington, D.C. And shout out to Dr. Kevin Washington, who's the president of our organization. As it relates to our youth, I believe that black psychologists, black psychiatrists, black social workers, the black therapists, black marriage and family therapists, black addiction counselors, when I look at the entire community of black mental health professionals, I don't think we've been doing enough to stand up in defense of black children. We haven't been doing enough to fight against special ed abuse. We haven't been doing enough to fight against ADHD and psychiatric med abuse. We haven't been doing enough to hold the black community accountable for the dismally low rate of black children who are in foster and adopted care programs, who are the least likely to be adopted by members of their own race. We haven't done enough to speak to the excessively high and unacceptable levels of black kids who are being foster parented out to white homosexual and lesbian couples. I mean, there's so much juvenile detention. I don't think we've done enough to fight against the juvenile detention of black children. I really think that not only black mental health professionals, but black professional associations in general, from the medical doctors to the criminologists, all the way across the board, I think the bourgeoisie mindset has really sunk into the black professional elite, and we're not taking up the causes of our young people the way that we should.
And that's a sad thing. What would you say to black single parents, especially women, to help them support their youth?
Number one, understand that you cannot be the mother and the father. We have an epidemic in the community now where black mothers are rewarding each other on Father's Day. They're giving out Father's Day gifts to other women. That's very disrespectful, okay, of not only black men, but it's disrespectful of black ancestors. It's disrespectful of African culture. God created two parents for a reason. We're all the result of two parents for a reason. A child needs an equal amount of feminine energy and an equal amount of masculine energy. And no matter how great a mother is, she can never be a father. No matter how great a father is, he can never be a mother. We need both. And parents need to make sure that their children receive an equal amount of masculine and feminine nurturance, because when the amount of nurturance is out of balance with regard to gender, it can trigger all types of other issues that we have in our community. Hyper-feminism as well as hyper-masculinity that we see on display in the gangster rap community every day, where this bravado, which is nothing but insecurity, is constantly being portrayed by fatherless black males. So we need both. On top of that, I want to remind parents that they have a right to say no to the psychological evaluation. They have a right to say no to psychiatric medication. Stop going into schools by yourself. You should never go to a school alone. On top of that, you should always keep real good notes, real good minutes. Everything that is said or done about your child needs to be recorded. You should get a complete copy of their academic record at least once every 3 years, which is your right as a parent under the federal FERPA law of 1974. And on top of that, the last thing I would say is you need to reinforce literacy in your house. Make your children read. One of my biggest problems with the technological revolution, the invention of the cell phone, the laptop, the tablet, and the video game, is our children are now wasting hours surfing the internet, tweeting and texting and Instagramming and Twittering. Time that you and I spent reading and writing is now being spent on useless technological gadgets.
Well, again, I just salute you for the work you're doing. It's truly, it's crucial that we get this kind of work done. I want to just take a moment to sort of shift the conversation. I know within your background, you also have a degree in political science. And so I wanted you to tell us a little bit about the seminar that you have coming up on the 7th. It's entitled Making America White Again, Black Power Politics in the Age of Donald Trump. So what are you going to be talking about? And, share a little bit about some of those concepts and ideas.
Without question. What I'm going to be dealing with there is I'm going to be dealing with the fact that Black America now has to undergo a psychological transition from the illusion of inclusion that Barack Obama and Al Sharpton brought to us. The illusion of inclusion. We have to transition from the illusion of inclusion, the myth of a post-racial society, which basically lured black people to sleep, and now we're going to be awakened by the Donald Trump aggressive, unapologetic, Anglo alpha male arrogance and racism of the next 8 years. And it's going to be quite a psychological, political, economic, and social adjustment that black people are going to have to make, because for 8 years we've been told that racism doesn't matter.
You had outlined, some things that Black America could expect under the Trump administration. And my hope is that the seriousness of this situation will motivate people toward greater self-determination and self-sufficiency. What are your thoughts about what can move our community towards self-sufficiency, and what could that look like?
To be honest with you, one of my greatest concerns about black people, because I've heard the rhetoric from some of the pundits and mainstream media, some of my colleagues who say that they think that Donald Trump being elected is going to push Black America into a different direction, because we now have to deal with the Trumpism that we're now going to get up and do for ourselves. Well, I don't share that type of optimism. I saw that when George W. Bush was in office, we didn't get up and do. I saw when his father was in office, we didn't get up and do. I saw it during Hurricane Katrina and the Rodney King situations and all these killings that took place during the Obama administration. We didn't get up and do. We have to understand something. Black people are dealing with a political fatigue that is born of a learned helplessness, collective consciousness that almost operates like a straitjacket that effectively neutralizes the motivation for us to want to do anything. And on top of that, there's a paralyzing pessimism that goes along with that learned helplessness that basically has us standing in cement, not even believing in our ability to transform our reality. I would say that you'll know when black people are serious, when black people stop going to churches who are not doing anything for the black community. You'll know when black people are serious, when black people start building schools for their own children, understanding that there's no way we can create a new reality for ourselves while black children are still having their unconsciousness conditioned by Caucasians. You'll know black people are serious when the leaders of all the different organizations, spiritual, political, and cultural, come together on their own to organize each other before they start talking about organizing the masses. One of the biggest issues we have, especially within the realm of black consciousness, and I'll be keynoting the Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad's Earth Day celebration in Brooklyn on the 12th of this month. And I've also been invited by Dr. Bernice King, the daughter of the late, great Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., to participate on the King Day Race Relations panel with Senator Sanders at the King Center in Atlanta on Monday, January the 16th. But we will know we're serious when there's a transformation in behavior. See, this black consciousness thing, to some extent, family, is a hypocrisy. Because if you're conscious, you don't have to tell me. I can see it in your behavior.
Well, this is definitely true, and we're just going to continue to work toward that end. So because we want to see it, and we know that we can do it. We just have to make up our minds.
And I'm hoping
Marcus
that
Garvey said in 24 hours we can have a new reality tomorrow.
That's right.
If we got to know ourselves. In 24 hours you can change it. But you need an evolution of consciousness before there could be revolution of circumstance. An evolution of consciousness must precede a revolution in circumstance.
Well, Dr. Umar, your message is powerful, and I'm just hoping that it reaches more of our people, and especially more of those that can respond to it and do something about it.
And can you just tell us just briefly, and because we're going to be ending soon, can you just tell us briefly again, tell the listeners briefly, give them your contact information, and tell them specifically how to attend this upcoming seminar, you know, the times and the location, so that those who are interested will be able to, you know, come.
Will do. And for the benefit of the listening audience, I'll actually be presenting in California 3 times in January. First in Los Angeles this Saturday, January the 7th, at the Ward AME Church in South Central LA. You can get your tickets at princeofpanafricanism.eventbrite.com. And we spell Africa with a K. princeofpanafricanism.eventbrite.com. Children 12 and under are free. Elders 65 and older are also free. Everyone else, it's a donation of $20. Also, I'll be speaking in San Diego at the World Beat Cultural Center at the end of the month. So the first Saturday is Los Angeles, but the last Sunday in January, the 29th, will be at the World Beat Cultural Center with Mother Makeda on Sunday, January the 29th. And then on the 27th and 28th of January, Friday and Saturday prior to the World Beat Cultural Center lecture, there will be a National Independent Black Parent Association invitation training. Anyone listening to today's broadcast who's serious about helping our parents help their children, join me in San Diego on the 27th and 28th so I can train you in how to operate a chapter of the Parent Association and how to be a parent advocate. That will be 2 days from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., San Diego, 27th and 28th, and then the lecture on the 29th, starting off in L.A. on the 7th. I can be reached at drumarjohnson.com. Email is drumarjohnson@yahoo.com. If anyone needs to text me for the flyer, they can do so at 215-989-9858, 215-989-9858. And I would be remiss if I didn't remind your listeners that tomorrow morning I will be hosting my weekly free Black Parent Teleconference. Any questions about education or mental health concerning black children, anyone in the community can get expert free advice from Dr. Umar Johnson every single Tuesday from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So that will be 3 a.m. until 5 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And that phone number for the call tomorrow is 856-232-0158. 857-232-0156, 857-232-0156. And the access code is 870-864-POUND, 870-864-POUND. If you didn't catch that, then just email me through the website, drumarjohnson.com.
Thank you so much for joining us this segment, Dr. Umar Johnson. And at this time, we are going to transition to our next segment. Our next
Indeed.
guest.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate you both.
Yes, thank you for participating. So our next guest, Siddiqui Bakari, is going to be presenting